evening, everybody. How's everybody tonight? Everybody doing good? Miss Susan, good evenings. We're going to look into the eyes tonight. I thought since we had some Sketch Club eyes this week, as I was going through my collection, I was thinking about what to do, and I ran across quite a few of Rembrandt's eyes. So I thought tonight we would look to see if we could see what Rembrandt sees. Does that sound good? And I've also been getting hearing some frustration about shadow colors, which is a common frustration, not being able to get it quite right. And so I'm hoping this might help us and spark our imagination in the shadow colors. All right, so Tom's ready. Enough with the chit chat, huh? Let's get to it. I'm with you, Tom. Let's get to work. Let us get to work. So let's see. We're just going to do a little screen share here. There we go. And I am going to try to remember to keep my mouth shut for the first, I don't know. I'm not going to let there be dead air for minutes at a time, but again, it's always important that you look with your own eyes first, I think. Right? Because this isn't about my vision, right? But it's about developing your vision. What will you see, right? What do you see? So do you, these are those shadow colors I was talking about, right? And they can seem so neutral, and yet we can get to where we can see them as orange. They can go to red. Is that blue or green? Certainly looks like it compared to the red. And then I think a little indication of the eyebrows can really help. How do you go near to far? Well, that would be near, and that would be far. It's like this one's missing that last step, isn't it? Again, what would a near eyelid look like versus a far? So you see it's all more to less. This cheek versus that cheek. And I think what some people are having trouble with is, do you see the soft release from this back cheek? Yet there's clearly light and clearly shadow. You can see it, so it's easy to do. Well, not necessarily. When you get down there, those are some really subtle little shifts. So do you feel that warmth? Can you feel that again there? You feel it there. And what's kind of incredible is this is darker, richer, a little lighter grayer, and lighter grayer. So even here, he's taking us back into space. All right, I do want to talk about some big sections tonight of things that you guys can look at. And we might not be able to, do Rembrandt's eyes tomorrow, but that doesn't mean that we can't improve the eyes that we do tomorrow, right? So for the one thing, look for the turn under from the forehead before the nose begins to come out. That little break there, how big or little it is. And then also, let's pay attention to the divide between the nose and the cheek. Right? That's an important corner that it's good to use. And sometimes maybe it's better to put more here than over here, because this is inside. But again, it all depends. It all depends. So this was a bit earlier. And in this one, you can see he hasn't yet developed that richness in the light. Right? Or if he did, he was working with some cheaper paint and it didn't quite hold up over the last 4 centuries so that we could fully appreciate it. Either way, who knows? Who knows? All right, the basics are there, but the rise and fall. Notice how the thick paint, you can see him trying to get more and trying to get more, but it's still kind of all melding together. Do you see that? Are some of you guys experiencing that? What? You try to do your blanched and your color and your gray and it all kind of melts together? I wouldn't feel bad. Looks like that might have happened to Rembrandt occasionally. Again, look at this side versus that side. All right, and then look how he's letting go. And notice how in this one, again, it might be the photograph, you never know, but it seems a little bluer, a little cooler, a little more obvious than some of his later work that we'll be looking at. Right, but the pieces are there, but oh, well. This was actually the self-portrait that I was talking about in class the other day that I went down to the Norton Simon and spent so many hours in front of. And it really comes down to the edges. The way he's able to open up and close down without grabbing you by the throat, basically. Hey, the beautiful Miss Cindy Myers here. So again, did we talk about dividing the side of the nose? Right, see how he's made that very obvious. Is this a bit darker, richer? Yeah, say so. But tell me about this mustache here. No. Tell me exactly about it. I want to hear every detail about that mustache. And what I'd like to hear you say is, it's hard to talk about that mustache with any detail because it's hard to find. What do you see instead of that mustache as you're trying to read that trying to study that mustache? What happens? Well, all we see is the red. Did you notice this? Did you notice how soft he put a little light on here and then he let it go away and then he got it back? Did you notice how softly His light turns into air. Did you notice how softly he turned that form under? And then got another form. Right, just like he's turning that form. Has another form. How soft? How soft? Look, he put just a little bit of light here. He actually put a light on a lower plane more than the upper plane. Why would he do that? Why would he put that little bit of light right there? You think it was just an accident? Without it, you can't see the end of the nose. And did you see how soft that cast shadow underneath the nose is? Anyway, we should keep moving. But again, look at all of this, that how he uses the warm and then he lets go of it a little bit to grab it again. Can you see the red in here? The red on the lips, reds in the nose, red. That's almost orange, a little red. Look at that red and then, just a dot there. Just a dot. What about that hairline? Is that how your hairlines look? How about that ear? The way it comes out. Yeah, I believe it was John Carlson who said, anybody can paint a good mass or two, but it's the transitions between them that really determine the painter. So what we just saw was a self-portrait, and if my memory serves me, I think it was Rembrandt at age 34. And here you can see he's aged a little bit. So this is a little later still life. Self-portrait. After the fame and fortune had gone. And it's a little more direct. But a lot of that same subtlety's there. Do you see? It's not so refined here as before, but it's still a very exciting dance, right? It looks to me like this man has a little life left. What's near and what's far, and how do they differ? How strongly do you see the ear? How sharp is that cast shadow on this side? So many questions, so many questions. I have a feeling that was from a few paintings ago. I have a feeling I know which one that was about. That's funny. That's funny. And here we go. So now this is somewhere in between those two stages, isn't it? Between the self-portrait when he's 34 and the last one we looked at when he's a little bit older. Can you see the same combinations though? The warmer, the grayer, the cooler, and a little more blanched. For shorthand, I call it more yellow, but it's really more of it losing the red, right? And we don't want to lose the red and go to orange necessarily, because that's not a big enough jump. It's not that you might not have a little orange in there, but that red to yellow is a bigger jump. And can you guys see how much warmth is in those shadows? Again, for some of you guys who are struggling with the shadows, and I know it's not necessarily easy, and it's not necessarily easy to find this measure, but that warmth is your answer. And just like in the light, we want to make sure that we can see white clearly from color. White color, white color. What about a dark accent versus shadow? And then that doesn't mean that everything's going to be a hard edge everywhere. But we have some clean separation. That used to drive me crazy because I had no idea what they were talking about. Clean separation. And one of the things, Susan, I just realized that you had sent me a painting and said you weren't happy with the skin. And I think I was trying to remember what exactly it is, if it was an ape or a monkey or what, I can't recall off the top of my head. But notice how his skin on most of it, it's not solid, but he finds ways to kind of break it up. Complexion is a hard thing, but you see how he's broken up into kind of color pieces here? Here the same thing, right? The red's not so much, the yellow's he's not as much color. And then even here on the more refined stuff. The chimp, yeah, the chimp, the skin, exactly. And so what I'd like you to see is kind of how he's handling the paint, almost kind of broken tile a little bit, rather than so much all one color just on the form. I don't know if I'm describing that right. It's a little bit hard to describe, but I'm hoping you're seeing. You know, this isn't a very good example. It's a little bit early. But even here, you see it doesn't stay very long before it changes. And it does swing, like here it's a little more orange, yellow, and then a little more red, black, green, cool. But it's not changing like green to red to yellow, such that if I hadn't shown you that right there, that you would go, oh, look, yellow, red, green. Right? It's extremely, extremely subtle. Again, I don't think that's the best example, but in these. Okay, good, Susan. Good. I see the changes. And again, it's hard because I feel like the most I can do is expose you right now, and then after a little exposure, you just, and it comes along. And then, you know, sometimes it just snaps into place, but usually. Look here at the hairline, too. You see how unregular, because you were talking about fur and stuff, and this would help on the chimp, too, where it's not such a line. Do you see how irregular? And not such that it caught, right? It's still, boom, relatively flat. But if we get in there closer, Right? It seems like I remember a fact, and I'm saying to a science teacher, I should probably double check this, but that if something to the effect that if we shrunk the Earth down to the size of a pool ball, it would be like so much smoother than the pool ball. So what looks like huge changes to us, it's all scale. Right? So that's the same what I'm talking about here. So much of this is just scale and measure. And then what happens by having that kind of broken color, when you have solid like a dark of the eye, right, or highlights, man, it just really grabs, really grabs the viewer. So what do you see? What do you see? So how much detail really is in the eyes of this painting? And wait a minute, you had said that you were going to show us colorful shadows. This doesn't look like a very colorful shadow. Man, you guys are harsh. You're holding me to task. I like it, I like it, I like it. Make me earn that money. All right, well, let's investigate this a little bit. So I agree with you, at least in this reproduction. There's no color here, is there? Or very little. But if you see no color here, notice how... You see how this is a darker, richer? Okay, now let's go back one or two. In this painting, the shadow has more color, but this has got more white. It's not nearly as rich. Can you guys see that? Again, I want to point this out because on every painting it's a decision. It's a decision kind of on like what key this song's going to be in. And you can do it in whatever you want, but stick with it through the whole song. So I just wanted you to become aware of how you can shift those roles around a little bit. And here, what is he's done? He's sending us around the eye. Look, we're highlighted here. We fall off. We're highlighted here. We fall off. We're highlighted here. We're highlighted up here. Right? Kind of just rotating around this mysterious shadow. So to me, this is one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in my life, at least until this point. Granted, this is just a section, and that's raw canvas right there. Stain of the canvas. The stain of the canvas. And if you guys were around for the morning feedback, I believe it was yesterday when we worked in the dry creek bed and we did shapes. Look how these shapes end. They're just brush strokes, but the brush stroke leaves a shape. And it's not this everywhere, right? It's this, and then it goes to something different. Would you call this shadow shape a dynamic shape? Well, if you don't, I would like you to show me what a dynamic shape is then, because I would be very curious to see your dynamic shape. Yes, that is an extremely dynamic shape. And what effect do you think that's going to have on the painting? Well, it's going to help draw you, but why can't he have that shadow shape so, what are we even going to call that? Well, he can do it because look at the paint in the light. Again, it's all relative. Right? Everything's relative. He could not leave a shape like this, at least with these edges, in one of those more refined paintings. But for this more direct paint, man, that works just fine. Right? And then compare that to the passivity and quietness of this. Almost literally the eye of the storm. Okay, if there's any last minute questions, let me know. We're going to finish up in the next couple of minutes. And again, so I wanted to go back to something a little more refined now and see if your eye could pick those things up a little bit better. Right? Where is he taking you here, and how do you know? What has he done here that's different than the other ones? Well, here he's really talking about in the eye. Well, how do you know that? Well, how much color has he got around here? Right? Remember we had some highlights here, a highlight on some of them. But look how gray and nothingness here. And then again, we have a little color right down through there. But all of that quiet, nothing grayness makes you want to go there even more. Right? With all these different highlights, and there's this warm in there. Anywho. So I wanted to finish tonight with something not quote unquote as refined as some of his others. For some of you guys, and some of you are getting a little bit frustrated now, and that's part of it. We want to consider how we can make this happen. So, if we wanted a paint to look like this, would we put our shadow down first and our light on top of that? Or does this have the light down and then the shadow on top of the light? Can you look at this and decode that? Yeah, for my money, he's hard not to love, Susan. He is hard not to love. So he puts the shadow down and he works from darker to lighter because then the lightest light lays on top of everything. For my money, this right here it's everything. It delights me to no end, and it scares the hell out of me. As in, how the world do you ever do that? I mean, look at the energy in just this upper eyelid right here. Can you isolate that? Unfortunately, I can't get this any larger. But isolate that with a little hole between, you know. Do this. Do this. Do this and isolate that eyelid. Come on, nobody's looking. Nobody's looking. You're an artist. It's what you do. And just in that eye, the light on the eyelid there, the upper eyelid, look at the energy in that. The lower eyelid, look at the energy on that. Look at that light just throwing you through the shadow. Do you guys feel that? And it's not one time, but look, this is on top of the dark. And then look at the light. The light's got another edge that's on top of that. And it's just as interesting. Oh, stop it already. You're killing me. You're killing me. Anyway, guys, that's what we got tonight. Friday night and then the weekend off. And then we'll be back to a regular schedule on Monday. But we will have one more morning jump start in the morning at 8. And then we'll have a Zoom class at 9. So, I hope you guys all enjoyed Rembrandt's Eyes and got something from it. We'll scroll back through one last time as we get ready to close out. And I hope one of the things you noticed is there's very, very similar patterns, but a million different ways to do that pattern, to say that pattern, to express that patterns. Yeah, so Susan said the eyes of one of his portraits of a man at LACMA glistens as if they're a living eye. You know, that's the real difference is Rembrandt, when he's on, there's like a living presence in them. And I've seen Lafelle have, there's artists that can do that, right? And we can call it actuality or whatever. It's astounding. It's astounding that color mud can take you into the soul of a sitter, you know? Just amazing. Right? Sometimes more detail, sometimes less detail. You see how this is, what's different here? It's mainly the big forms. He hasn't messed with the little forms as much. Where in some of these others, he's telling you about the little forms. By the way, I know this is about eyes, but look at that freaking hair! How fun would it be to paint that? Look at that! Oh, man. Oh, man. You know, and there's a whole, we could probably spend 10 years studying the coming and going of this collar right here. Right? And we didn't even talk about that or any else of this painting, but this is a phenomenal piece of work right here. I mean, look at that ear. Oh, man. Ah. And again, at one point, he couldn't separate his blanch from his color. At one point, he overshot the gray. Right? We all grow. We all grow. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. I really, really appreciate it. If you liked the video, please give it a like. We'd love it if you'd subscribe to the channel. I invite friends, family, any nice people. We're mean people adverse on this channel. And so we want a nice community of friends. So if you know anybody like that might fit in, we'd love to have them stop in. The water's fine. Thanks, sweetheart. All right, to all you good people, I hope to see you in the morning. Let's see, I guess I could show my face before we left. There we go. All right, so the introvert emerges. And we'll see you one more time in the morning before we have a break for a few days. All right, have a good night, everybody. Bye-bye.